nice sweet meditation, ease you in, deliver you the theme, and then I'd be getting into my sermon. But tonight, no! We're dropping you right in. Is that okay? All right, you'll see why. To be sick and to be made well again is the ultimate justice. This is my thesis. This is what I've decided. There is a plague infecting the world right now. I'm sick. Most of the people I know are sick. The culture is sick, and the world is sick. And the sickness I am talking about is the result of unconscious behavior and unintegrated shadow. And I am talking about shadow in the Jungian sense of the word. If you've never seen my sermon about shadow called Feed Both Wolves, it's fantabulous. You can find it on our YouTube channel, which you should subscribe. 13 minutes. The shadow is like my jam. So I've talked about it a lot before, if you've been to Alchemist. Now there are two main problems with the majority of the population walking around with unintegrated shadow, basically asleep to ourselves. First of all, that which we reject and suppress in ourselves, we project onto other people, and then we attract those people into our lives in order to show us that we have fallen asleep to something in ourselves. And second, we manifest illness, physical and emotional pain, drama, chaos, destruction, and failure as a result of behaviors that we have no idea we're even doing. Is this starting to hit a little bit? And the worst part is we're fooling ourselves into not only believing that we don't have these qualities, while simultaneously believing ourselves to be the innocent victims to those people who clearly do have those qualities. And we repeat these victim stories over and over and over, and we feel trapped. The only way out of a victim story is to see the way in which you are a perpetrator. And the only way to heal drama and pain is you have to learn to see your own toxicity. Yay! Now's your chance to leave if you want to leave. So I follow a local healer named Timothy Gay on Instagram. He was out there in the lobby promoting an upcoming workshop. He's fantastic, practices something called theta healing, which I find very interesting. And he posted this the other day. One of the most challenging aspects of the healing journey is acknowledging ways in which you were toxic. Without that, you won't know how to be fully present. Wow. Okay, so how do we wake up to our role in this epidemic when we are all deathly afraid of our own darkness, we're afraid of being wrong, and we're so afraid of being the bad guy that we constantly make sure that we are the victim in every story? How do we wake up when the ego has designed the game in such a way that you literally cannot see your own part in it? You have to manifest other people to show you. So the scariest part of waking up is realizing that a vast portion of your own behavior is compulsive and unconscious. And if there's one thing I've learned recently, it's that the smarter, more cunning, and often more spiritual you are, the easier it is to deceive yourself. A lot of your attitude, mood, personal agenda, and behavior is driven by your unconscious self, and the person you are most fooling is you. That's right. So how do you get out of a cage inside which you can't see the bars? How to wake up out of self-deception? 1, this is my recipe, okay? I've been working on this for you guys. 1, you have to decide you want to wake up, first of all. If you've made it past 1, great. 2, you have to learn to see your shadow. 3, you have to learn to look at the evidence around you that might indicate you're not as awake as you think. 4, you have to create a network of feedback and accountability. And 5, you have to try. Some people do make it all the way to 4, and then they're like, forget it. I don't want to try. So my story of awakening to my shadow begins 2.5 years ago when my comedy troupe split up. It was a very traumatic turned loving experience for most people, but because the universe was clearly prepared for this whole thing, it made sure that not only did I have a real love coach who had just entered my life at that time, but I had also just started a 2-year shamanic training program. And if it weren't for those teachers and those tools, I don't think I may have made it out of that cave alive. Because when you first start coming out of Plato's cave, it hurts, right? It's painful. I experienced an accelerated course in seeing my shadow because not only did I have the wreckage around me, right? The failed troop after a decade of playing together as a symptom, I also had the fresh scratching of old wounds that I thought were definitely healed. And I had 9 people who had known me for a decade who were willing to sit with me on multiple occasions for hours and tell me behaviors of mine that were mostly unconscious to me. So I got to sit and listen to stories of my own toxicity for hours. Over the next 2.5 years, I dug deeper into this dark rabbit hole. When I wasn't moving into blame toward others for my behaviors, I was self-flagellating. Both are dysfunctional extremes that never, ever serve your healing process. It wasn't until I finally surrendered to the truth that not only do I suck sometimes, but we all suck sometimes, that I was finally able to start integrating this shadow. Because here's the thing, your ego will go to great lengths to prevent you from ever seeing your own toxicity and from ever seeing the ways that you were a perpetrator. But sometimes the message gets through, and then your ego will go into blame or shame in order to keep you from actually doing anything about it. So, tricky ego. So today, I am here to confess to you all the darkest parts of myself. Confession, I believe, is the first step toward integration of the shadow, and integration of the shadow is the only way to heal the shadow. You cannot suppress it. That only gets you further from yourself. So I believe confession is the first step toward integration because it literally takes what was in the darkness and it brings it into the light. But there is one important thing when practicing the fragile art of confessing your shadow, and that is you must remember to maintain your levity. That was a wink if you couldn't see. I winked like this. Okay. So many brave shadow hunters have come before me, but many people have not actually made it to the stage of confession. And of the shadow hunters who did make it to confession, very few of them made it out of that stage without shame. And that is where the world is sick. And it's time for us to get well. And in order to do that, we must start owning the parts of ourselves that are toxic and the parts that we play in perpetrating this toxicity. But we must remember to maintain our cosmic giggle while we do it. And thus I shall present to you the darkest parts of myself via PowerPoint presentation. Because there is nothing sillier than a badly designed, poorly animated PowerPoint presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, the shadow side of Jessica Levity, a confession, transition up. Notice the Comic Sans font. Okay, I brought note cards for this. Are you guys ready for the first confession? Okay, bring it on. I am controlling. Shocking. I thought I would open up with something obvious. So, where do I even start with this one? Did anyone see the murder mystery we did for Our Town in July? The original? Thank you. I played the role of Control, a personification of control, a part which I literally wrote. People were coming up to me after, they were like, "You are so funny, we had no idea you were such an actress, we've never seen you do something theatrical, you're usually just like doing a sermon," and I was like, y'all, I was not acting. I was born for that role. Okay, so this is a trait that obviously serves me well in some capacities, like as a manager or a leader, or director, or producer, but it does not serve me in situations like when I am trying to make all of my friends sit in a perfect circle when we are having a party because the awkward rhombus shape just isn't doing it. Shut up. It doesn't serve me well when I am side seat driving because my husband insists that Neil Road is the best way to get to 395 South from Midtown when clearly it is Moana is the fastest way to 395 South, or Plum. Okay. Maybe I should dig a little deeper. I control the energy in the room with my mood. If I don't like what's happening, I can change the temperature control with my mood. And that is very controlling. I can control your reaction to things with my tone. I can control with a sigh or an eye roll. And my favorite form of control is expectation. Creating expectations is very controlling, and you'll know it because when you fail them, I will let you know. People are like, no, actually, you can have expectations. No, you can make requests. But expectations are a form of control to get people to do what you want. And when they break your script, you let them know. Okay, I feel like I could have dug deeper on that one, but I'm bypassing. All right, well, I've got a lot of shadow to confess. Okay, confession number 2. I give in order to get. Oh, this is a subtle one, and it's hard to describe because it manifests in different forms. I never realize I'm doing this one, it only shows up later. So one form that I give in order to get, which is an unloving act, it's very toxic, is called scorekeeping. So in my mind, I might do things for you or give things to you, and it seems like it's coming from a place of benevolence, and I might even think it's coming from a place of benevolence, but we find out that it's not, because then when you fail to reciprocate that same thing back to me, I am disappointed. Because apparently I was only giving to you in order to get something, and when you fail me, I will bust out the scorecard and I will let you know. I am a better friend than you. I am a better alchemist than everyone. I do all of the things. Here's the scorecard. That's one way that I give in order to get. Oh, and this one's really big for me. It also manifests in the fact that I tie my value into what I can do for people. So, over the years, I developed a lot of various different kinds of talents. And the reason for that is because I find value in how I can provide for people. I think that I was probably a very lonely kid, and I didn't really have a lot of friends, and so I noticed that I started to get friends when I was useful. So now, 25 years later, I have all these different talents, and I show up and I give these talents in order to get value. I give in order to get, and the most powerful in my way face that I learned this toxic behavior is because literally my first thought after my troop split up was, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, how could they leave me? Think about all of the things I do for them. Yeah, so that's a big one for me. Okay, moving on, great. Remember the giggle! It's so weird, the juxtaposition of like all this darkness, and then I'm like, psych, swipe left! Okay, well, this next one is like, I feel like we're getting darker as we go. Is everyone okay? Alright. I self-victimize for pity, power, and attention. Oh, okay, when I say self-victimize, I don't mean physically, like I'm not self-harming. No. You guys, the way that I self-victimize is a lot more hidden and psychic and insidious. You have to remember I am an actor, okay? And I am mystical and spiritual, and so the ways that I self-victimize are a lot sneakier and snakier, but it's so weird to laugh at that. I love it, it's alchemy. But it's still just as toxic as someone with more transparent behavior, because that's what us psychic manipulators like to believe, is that we're just above all of those more transparent manipulators. Okay, so sometimes I feign fragility in order to gain control or pity, like crying when you give me feedback about my toxic behavior. That is a form of manipulation and control to get you to stop telling me waking up hurts. Ow. Sometimes I feign fragility just because I want attention. Other times I feign fragility just because I'm lazy and I want you to help, but for some reason I feel like I need to manipulate you into helping instead of just asking. Other times I'm actually fragile And that's a legit thing too, but most of the time it's coming from this toxic place. It also manifests, this is a weird one, in acting sickly in order to get a hit of that sweet, sweet drug known as sympathy, right in the vein. There's a cultural belief that sympathy is a loving thing to give someone. Empathy is, but sympathy is an unloving thing to give someone, and it is a drug, and I will act sickly and fragile in order to get your sympathy, which gets me high momentarily, but is ultimately toxic. Oh, and I've just learned this about me. Sometimes I will actually attract to myself some kind of illness or some kind of accident so that it looks like it's not me who's doing it. Oh, those hippie new age bastards. I'm like, no, this really happened. I just happened to get sick. That's not my fault. But we know, as alchemists, that we are absolutely responsible for these repeated stories that we're bringing to ourselves. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is my favorite. I lack self-care. Zoom transition. I love how it came out from the depths of the void. I lack self-care. Okay, so there are things that I know that I should be doing for myself for my highest good, and I don't do them. Okay, next slide. No, just kidding. just kidding. Okay, for starters, my diet is a constant struggle for me. There's a certain way that I should be eating to be healthy, and I don't do it. I struggle with a lot of chronic pain, and I am not supposed to be eating certain foods like refined carbohydrates, sugar, and processed foods because they all add inflammation and they make my pain so much worse, and I don't do it. The single greatest thing I could be doing for myself is yoga, and I don't do it because it's painful. And then I tell myself, well, it's not self-care if it's painful. That's a lie. Let's see what else. I have only recently learned the importance of slowing down, saying no to things, having a regular practice of meditation and prayer. These are all things that I lack self-care in. Basically, there's a way that I am supposed to be living that is for my highest good, and I don't take care of myself, and that is probably the most fundamentally toxic thing that we are doing to ourselves. Okay, yay! Are you still alive? Yeah. Am I still alive?
I don't know.
Can you see me? I feel so naked. Okay. This next one, oh God. Okay, I'm me. I know what you guys are thinking. You're fired. I'm mean. I know what you're thinking. You're not mean. This is the thing, is the ego, when receiving feedback about the unconscious behavior, will think of all of the times that you weren't those things. I'm not saying I'm mean all the time. I'm saying that my shadow side is mean, and that somewhere along the line I have judged that as a bad quality, and I've disowned it in myself, and I have guilt about it, and thus created shadow with it. So my meanness manifests, this is feedback that I've been given, and man, I had to hear it for probably 2 years before I was like, okay. You know what it was, is I had to be around someone else who was like that before I was like, oh. Basically, what I've been told is that my energy can be dominating and bullying in a room. Yeah, that's a huge one. Oh, people are like, this explains so much. Now, I do want to say one thing, is I'm also a shy introvert. People don't believe me, so sometimes I'm really freaking awkward. If you see me like at the grocery store or something, that's not me being mean. That's me being like, I don't know how to interact when I'm not in control with a microphone on stage. So yeah, my energy in a room can be dominating and bullying, and I've heard that my words can stab like knives. And ever since getting that part of me under control, here's the tricky thing about the shadow, I'm still doing it in my head. So I may have learned to control my bite, but the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what you're actually doing and what you're thinking about doing, which is why visualization and sports psychology and things like that work. The shadow and the subconscious mind don't know. So in my head, I'm still stabbing you with my words, with my righteous anger. The only thing worse than anger is righteous anger, because it feels justified in itself. So I'm not mean, I'm just right. I think I proved it on that one, okay? People are like, I resonate with this too. too much. Next. Okay, let's move on. I am an addict. Ooh, wah, wah. I told you, they're gonna get heavier as we go. I'm telling you, the last few months have been really freaking heavy, y'all, because the way that you wake up to this is either one, people tell you your toxic behavior, or two, you manifest people into your life with these behaviors and you learn to turn it around on yourself. And so I have been manifesting some very fun people recently. Okay, so I'm an addict. So when you're doing shadow work, you have to remember that your ego's gonna go, you're not an addict, because think about all the ways you're not one. The point is to think about how you are one. To, I hate this word, behoove. It would behoove you. So I was manifesting a lot of addicts into my life, and so then I was like, all right, how am I an addict? Well, I'm addicted to coffee, processed food, sugar, control, righteousness, and that really fiery, passionate feeling when you're first falling in love with someone. I'm totally an addict to that. And I know that these are all addict behaviors because sometimes I make choices that are ultimately not good for me and good for the people around me because the addiction is bigger than caring about myself or other people. That's addiction. Okay, this is my favorite one coming up next. Two more, you guys. I'm codependent. I'm codependent because I often need other people to like me in order to feel good about myself. Being rejected is a very painful emotion for me. So that's why the heart of this journey started 2.5 years ago when I lost my true. I fear making mistakes, and I fear failure. I obsess about other people, especially if I feel jealousy or fear coming up in our relationship. I will totally obsess. I willingly take responsibility for other people's feelings. I'm a people pleaser, both from needing you to like me, but also to manipulate and control you. So if I do a bunch of good things for you, it's a lot easier to get you to do what I want later. I take things personally. That's my favorite. And I've been buried in shame, which has manifested in perfectionism. I love us perfectionists. We think it's like this whole martyr thing, like, I'm a perfectionist. No, it comes from shame and a total addiction to codependency. It's like all wrapped in and on itself. Any of you guys resonating with this? Good, I just wanted to see where my other codependents were at so that I could find you after the show. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, you guys ready for the darkest one? I need your consent before we go here because this is the darkest part of my shadow. Okay, I'm ready. Give me the cheesy transition. I am a narcissist. Yikes is right. Nobody freak out like the yikes guy. Nobody freak out. That's really on my sheet. No one freak out. This is a really, really important one for me to confess, okay? Because this, I believe, is at the heart of the plague infecting the culture in the world and our tribes right now. As much as I've been waking up to this shadow after asking myself why I kept manifesting narcissists into my life, that was a fun experience. It's been really powerful, like I said. I did the behoove test. It behooved me to see, how am I a narcissist? Now, a lot of people came to my aid, and some of you might be feeling uncomfortable. Like there's this thing that comes up when someone starts to do this work, especially so publicly, that we want to be like, no, Jess, you're not a shitty person. And it's like, no, but kind of I am, and that's the whole point, is you are too sometimes. And we need to start owning it without shame, but people want to come to my rescue and be like, you aren't those things. But sometimes I am. And a lot of people have been like, we just want to let you know, as I started coming out to people as a narcissist, they're like, just so you know, you can't really be a narcissist because a true narcissist would never be able to look at that. So, ladies and gentlemen, and that is true, a true narcissist would have no way, unless they could use it to their advantage, there's no way. So I am inventing the term, narcissist light. Some of the qualities of narcissism, but not all of the toxicity. And none of the calories. especially when you're comparing yourself to the shadow who has shown up, who is those things. You'll be like, well, mine's not like that. Remember, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. And so I was like, all right. How am I a narcissist? Well, grandiose sense of self-importance. Well, I may not believe that I'm better than everyone else like a total narcissist, but I've definitely lied and exaggerated my own importance when telling stories about myself. It's kind of something that we all do a lot, and I like to fudge details and facts a little bit, sometimes when I don't even need to. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like you'll add a couple of like, I studied theater for 5 years when it was 3, and like, why did you add the extra 2? But we all do it, and actors do it more than anyone, so watch out for those guys. But I lie and fudge details, and it's like, there's like, I'm floating kind of above myself, and I'm like, I know that I just lied, but then I'm like, kind of okay with it. I'm introducing my husband, my partner, to the series Friends, and we realized like Rachel's kind of a narcissist, and in the way that she's changing herself, like every guy she dates, she tries to mimic their personality back to them. That is a totally narcissistic thing to do, and it's totally normalized in our culture because back to the codependent, you want people to like you, and so you lie and fudge details about yourself, and you have a grandiose sense of self-importance. Lives in a fantasy world. I have purposely denied people's experiences and feelings when dealing with a situation, which results in a form of gaslighting. So super toxic narcissists will straight up like know that they're lying and making you feel crazy. That is one of the main tools of a narcissist. Mine's more of like a passive gaslight. No, I don't know. I feel like it's just as toxic, where like, I don't want to be wrong. I have a fear of being wrong because I'm codependent and I'm a perfectionist. And so if we are going at it and we are arguing and ultimately I just want to be right, I'm gonna deny things that, and these are all things I don't currently do, but I'm talking in the present sense because I think it's important. I'm gonna deny your feelings about what happened and maybe fudge some details about the story so that I'm right and you're wrong. And that might leave you feeling crazy. It's essentially gaslighting. Okay, needs constant praise and admiration. This one's just 100% true. This one I'm not narcissist light, just give me the real sugar, and like there's no aspartame in this one. I would say this is the shadow side of having affirmation as your love language. So that's just who I am. Like, if I've been working on something and I show it to you, or I've just got my hair cut, or I've just put together a new outfit, and I ask you if you like it, you better be prepared. Okay? So, because I need affirmation. Constantly, and praise. Sense of entitlement. This one is so unconscious, I don't even realize it's there. It's weird when a really toxic narcissist enters your life and you're really seeing how that sense of entitlement is just so at the fundamental part of what they're doing. It's so bleh. But it's definitely there. For me, it's like the shadow side of believing that you're a child of God who deserves everything. And so I constantly have to look at that for myself because I really do believe that we are all children of God and that we get to inherit the kingdom. Sometimes when you are not integrated with your shadow on that, it comes off as a sense of entitlement, and that is dangerous to relationships and success. Super insidious, right at the bottom of all your hopes and dreams, right there. Exploits others without guilt or shame. You know, this is something that I don't do intentionally. I'm not like plotting, like I'm gonna exploit someone today. But when you're a controlling person and you're not always like conscious of your toxic behaviors, you end up exploiting people. The only difference between narcissist light and total narcissist is that I just do it with guilt and shame. Like I still have it. I don't do it without it. Thanks. Frequently demeans, intimidates, bullies, or belittles others. Okay, clearly I'm not Trump, okay? But I've been told my energy when unhappy can dominate and bully other people in a room. Am I responsible for people being intimidated by me? No. Is our culture always supportive of powerful women in positions of authority? Absolutely. Also no. But is there something aggressive about about a vibe that I put off when I'm unhappy. Yes, and this is the part that I'm responsible for. And finally, can justify any behavior. This is the scariest trait, you guys. Like, as a surgeon, looking at the metaphysics of the shadow, this is the trait that I'm really like, how do we surgically remove this? This is the scariest trait, the most important one, because smart, quick-witted people are able to justify almost any behavior. And y'all, I am a professional improviser. I am literally just really good at justifying absolutely any crazy thing that happens on stage. And it happens as quick as a neuron fires. It is this quality that puts us back to sleep, away from a dysfunctional behavior that we may need to look at in ourselves. Because I've justified it as acceptable, my ego puts it away as totally okay, and despite its consequences. So this justification is what I believe is at the heart of our plague. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I feel that I have sufficiently proven that I have a dark side, and she is cray. Okay, so my theory is that by confessing, I have started the integration process, and by integrating rather than rejecting and projecting, I can stop manifesting people into my life that need to show me these behaviors. Do you think that God heard me? But my reasons for sharing this today were not totally self-centered, no. Not only am I hoping that I have inspired you all to look at your own darkness and even take responsibility for the lessons showing up in your life, but also, y'all, we need to save the world. We are sick. We as a culture are so unintegrated with our shadow that we have manifested mean, lying, narcissistic leaders and entitled ways of living that are literally killing the planet. If you broaden your look at the definition of narcissism, you see that actually modern day American culture is very narcissistic. We believe that we have domain over the earth. We believe that it is our inherent entitled right to live beyond our means, to live, to consume beyond what is actually healthy for the environment and for people in third world countries. We feel entitled to it. We don't even question it. It is that ingrained, and because we have justified it as men deserve domain over the earth, instead of we belong to the earth belongs to us. And that is so narcissistic when you think about it. And look what is happening. Y'all, we have unintegrated shadows so wide that we have now projected them on a macrocosmic level, and that should scare us. That's basically a whole other sermon, but I cannot just leave you hanging because I know some of you are squirming with the idea of what darkness may be lurking in you, in you, in you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a surprise. Brad, give me a drum beat. Matt, can I get some rock and roll lighting? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Shadow Challenge 2019! Okay. What is Shadow Challenge 2019? Well, I'm so glad that you've asked. Cue slide. Shadow Challenge 2019 is when my fellow brave shadow hunters ask 5 people who know them the most intimately to please tell me 5 character traits or behaviors that I exhibit, but may be blind to, that you believe are not serving my highest good. You can find a digital copy of this challenge at alchemistmovement.org/shadow. So here's the thing. Can you really do it? I don't know, can you? Does the fate of the world depend on it?
Yes!
Yes. Now here's the thing. 90% of the people in your life, if you were to ask them this question, if you asked your friend to tell you 5 things that you might be doing that they think you're unconscious of that are toxic, essentially, it will trigger them because they will then project onto you that they cannot fathom someone telling them about them. So then they will either A, not be able to answer it, 2, lie about it, or Z, just completely sugarcoat everything. So there are anonymous feedback surveys. You can't get out of this, you guys. I mean, I'm not forcing you, but I am controlling how you feel about it with my tone. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is, if anonymity is a problem, look at all I did was Google collect anonymous feedback, and I got all this stuff. There's all kinds of apps for it now too. SurveyMonkey, this is on the website too, so I have it all laid out for you. Deep down, your friends have been dying to point these things out to you. And I know some of you are going to do it hoping that they do it, because you've got some things to say to them too. But that would be doing things with agenda. Giving in order to get. Can't fool a fooler, you guys. Okay, so here's my disclaimer. Just because they write it down, so let's say you get a friend to actually do this for you. Disclaimer, 2 disclaimers. 1, just because they write it down does not mean it's true, okay? Don't freak out. This has to be a disclaimer because some of you are going to be opening Pandora's box. Okay, so just because they write it down does not mean it's true. You'll know there's something there if it triggers you. I did not have evil laugh in my script. That was totally raw in the moment. Second disclaimer. Don't let the annoyance that will inevitably come when they tell you something that is so clearly them. Because that is going to happen, okay? It's going to happen, but that's how the shadow works. When people, the metaphysics of the shadow is that you can't see something in someone else unless it's inside of you too, so they are likely to tell you something that is also true of them. And all you get to say is what? Thank you. Is thank you. Just remember, it only matters if it triggers. And you aren't allowed to defend, deny, or blame. If you have a friend that is actually brave enough to help you with this project, the only thing you get to say is thank you. So now the question is, what the hell do you do with this information? First you cry, alone, so no one feels bad. And second, you come to my shadow workshop, Q-Slide, there it is. Shadow Challenge 2019 Integration Workshop. At this workshop, I will teach you not only how to integrate the information that comes up, because it's not always what you think it is, okay? Just because they say it doesn't mean it's something you actually do, it just means it's something that you've at least judged. I don't want to do it right now, we'll be here all night. So you're going to do the challenge, you're going to come, I'm going to teach you what to do with the information, and then I'm going to take you even deeper. Oh yeah, I'm going to teach you how to find your shadow so that you don't need other people to show it to you. Because that is how we get free, my friend. It is time to wake up. It is time to see the role that we are playing in the toxicity that has taken over the earth. And we know it's toxic, but we are so afraid of being the perpetrator that we have made ourselves the victim. And the story is never going to end unless we switch the matrix. We got to go deep into the back end of the computer and change the programming. So we have to stop manifesting these enemies into our lives. The second that we can integrate the shadow as an individual and as a culture, all of the people that we've manifested to show us the mirror can go away. How does that sound? All right, y'all want to take this into a guided meditation?